Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 27.
Thank you for joining us for Black Entrepreneur Experience. This is where we shine the light on the most successful Black entrepreneurs in the world. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards, and I am deeply honored to welcome today on our show the founder, and she's an author, she's a founder, she's a brand strategist, and the founder of the Life of a Bombshell Cosmetics, Kyshira Moffet. And she's also the Chief Bombshell Officer of the KMS Group. Welcome, Kyshira.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know what? I have given our audience a very brief snippet of your bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with us about you and your business?
Awesome. So again, thank you for this opportunity. I'm so excited to talk to you as well as your audience. As mentioned, I have a couple of different businesses, so I'll just quickly start at the beginning. So my first business, my first baby, as I call it, is the KSM Group, which was started in 2013, where I provide branding and digital marketing assistance to creatives, freelancers, entrepreneurs. And what that means is I help them to monetize their online presence. I help them to understand what social networks make sense for their brand and how they can make money leveraging those platforms. That business started from actually doing freelance career coaching and career consulting. And one thing that made me unique in that business was my spin on branding. And I would help people use Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook to find jobs, which led to entrepreneurs asking me to brand their LinkedIn profiles. And then it grew from there. I'm also a blogger. My website is thisishermovement.com, where I actually write about business branding, lifestyle topics. And that's how a lot of my clients find out about me, because I provide a lot of valuable content on a weekly basis through my blog. And that I've also had just as long as the KSM Group has been in existence. And that blog has its own Facebook community of supportive women that encourage each other through their side hustles and businesses. We have a monthly Twitter chat that was recently featured in Ebony Magazine, which I'm really proud of. And we have a couple different things going on in that movement. And then most recently, I founded a company called Life of a Bombshell Cosmetics, which I would say is more of a passion project, though I am hoping that it continues to grow. But it's cosmetics products for what I like to call today's go-getter. A lot of women, even if you're not a woman that wears makeup every day, you tend to wear it for those more special occasions because you like that extra pep in your step or that extra flare of confidence that it gives you. And so I created this company around that motto, and all of my products have really encouraging names or names that inspire you to get to work, such as No Distractions or Go Getter, names like that. So we offer lipsticks, lip gloss, makeup bags with fun sayings on them, and that's a quick backstory on me.
So tell us, Kyshira, how did you decide with your latest venture, with you being so busy, how did you decide that this was the business, the fashion project, as you talk about? How did you decide that this was another venture that you were going to take on?
That's a great question. And a lot of the books that I read from millionaires and moguls that we all look up to, they all talked about having multiple streams of income, having multiple businesses or having investments. And so I knew that I wanted to start something else because the KSM Group is a service-based business, which means my income potential is limited to how many clients I have or I can even take that I can have on a roster at any given time. And even with offering digital products and courses and things like that, I just felt like that I needed something else. And I knew I wanted to get into the product space because the profit there is different than in service-based businesses. But I knew that I didn't want to just sell anything. So I started to think through actually with my mom about, okay, well, what are the things that I would be okay with selling, that I would be comfortable with? Because selling is already uncomfortable for me. So to sell something that I don't believe in would be ridiculous. So I thought about makeup and how much I'm the friend that'll go with you to Sephora or Macy's and help you pick out the makeup that you like. Or I'm always talking about a YouTube video that I watched. And I learned how to do my own makeup in a really good way. And I felt like that would be a good place to start. And I thought, well, I could just do a lipstick line. Like, that's simple. And I did the research to get it started. I thought about potentially going through network marketing. So maybe doing Mary Kay or something like that. But I knew that as a brand strategist, I would have a hard time basically selling someone else's brand. And I knew that if I did this, I would want to do it my way. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing.
So how did you come up with a name for your businesses?
That's a good question. So KSM are my initials. So that one was easy. And the company name actually got it changed, but the company name initially was KSM Career Consulting. So I thought I would always do just career coaching and throw branding in that. But I felt like I knew I wanted my business to continue to grow and I didn't want the name to hold it back. So I just decided to switch it over to the KSM group so that at any given point in time, I could change what I wanted to do and the name wouldn't really matter. Her movement was actually created by a friend of mine that I went to college with. I went to Hampton University, and a good friend of mine came up with that term when she was designing one of my first websites. And with my readers of her movement, I call them busy bombshells. And I came up with that because I felt like when I was growing up in movies and in TV, and it's like this a little bit today, the women who were in those films outside of like Claire Huxtable, who were successful women, were always portrayed as women that didn't have work-life balance, or they weren't married, or they didn't have kids, or they didn't have a fashion sense, or they were just mean people. And I just felt like that was such a negative stereotype. So I wanted to redefine what it meant to be a powerful woman, to be a successful woman, to be a driven woman. And another sidetrack with that name, I really like Victoria's Secret and how they call their models bombshells. But on the other end, another stereotype was if you're beautiful or attractive, then you don't have brains. So I decided to mesh, both the best of both worlds of being beautiful, being attractive, being fun loving, having work-life balance with actually being driven. I came up with this term, busy bombshell. So when I thought about who my ideal customer would be for my cosmetics company, when I thought about creating a company for today's up and coming go-getter, jet setter, I thought about the bombshell. So I created this term, life of a bombshell. And that's where the cosmetics name came from. And it actually did not take very long. It kind of flowed like clockwork.
So tell us, that is an amazing story. Tell us about success. How do you define Kyshira success?
That is a great question. For the cosmetics business, I haven't figured out what success looks like yet. It's still very new. It just started in April 2017. So I know success there is going to look more like profit margins, right? But for my other ventures, success to me is every email I get from someone that says something I said or something I wrote changed their day, even better, changed their life. And that means more to me than even my clients. I mean, granted, I love my clients and they pay me for this work, but there's people out here that they don't have to read my blog. They're not paying me to write, but they read my blog and then go implement the things that I'm saying. And they'll email me and say, hey, I landed a new job, or hey, I finally launched my business, or I stepped out on face and pitched myself for a speaking engagement and I got it. Or I'll never forget a woman emailed me and said, I had a really bad family emergency today. I lost someone close to me, but I listened to your podcast and it just changed my spirits. And those moments are what moved me. And that's how I know that I'm truly walking in the purpose that I've been called to do, because I'm having direct impact on the lives of people that I've never met.
And so what is a daily or a weekly habit that you do consistently that has given you the greatest success?
I would say the best habit that I have that's given me the greatest success is making sure that I do something for my professional development every day, no matter how small it is. Whether that's listening to a podcast, reading 10 pages out of a book, watching an informational video, reading a relevant blog, but every day I make sure to do something for myself. And I think even you hear that a lot in the 9 to 5 world with people who are building, but people who are full on in entrepreneurship, sometimes you get just caught up in the actual day-to-day of your business, managing inventory, answering emails, taking calls, taking meetings, and you still lose sight of putting yourself first. And so doing that every day means I'm learning something new every day. And that has helped me tremendously because I'm always in growth mode. I'm always in learning mode. And I'm always taking what I'm learning and applying. And it's gotten great results so far. So that's been the best habit for me.
And that's an excellent, excellent habit because I was reading, I think it's, I hope I don't mess this up. I believe it's, because I'm an avid reader, and I believe it's in the book, Think and Grow Rich. And one of the techniques or tools that they talk about is to read 10 pages a day. And so that is definitely a key for many successful entrepreneurs. And like yourself, I love to listen to podcasts, and those that I listen to, most of them are avid readers and constantly personally developing themselves. So that was really some good advice for our audience.
Absolutely.
So share with us, Kyshira, what is one valuable lesson you wish you knew before starting your business?
That's a great question. I feel like one thing I wish I would have known was fear will hold you back. And I think that people talk about being fearless and all of this stuff, as like it's something simple. Like there's, these quotes on Instagram and people just say, "Oh, be fearless." But in actuality, being fear can paralyze you, and it can have you sitting still and scared to implement just the smallest things. People that I work with that are scared to post their picture on Instagram or go live on Facebook, not knowing that if you do it 2 or 3 times, it's going to come second nature to you, and they're missing out on these opportunities and they're not able to share their gifts with the world. And personally, for me, it's taken a long time to get over fear, and publicly people wouldn't know that, but behind the scenes, there's so many opportunities I've lost out on because I hesitated. I took too long to think about it and get back, or I said no because I wasn't sure, or I doubted myself and waited too late to do something, and then someone else ended up implementing it, that fear piece. And just earlier on, if I would have had a better understanding of it is okay to publicly fail, just as it's okay to privately fail, I feel like I would be a little bit further along.
So how did you personally, Kyshira, overcome your fears?
It took a lot of prayer. No lie, it took a lot of prayer. And I had this saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I made a little background for my laptop, and it was the desktop background on my computer for 2.5 years straight. I had it on my phone as well, and I would just look at that and remind myself, okay, listen, I know you feel this in your stomach, you feel these butterflies, but that doesn't mean you can't push through and move forward. 5 years ago, I was scared to death of public speaking. I remember my senior capstone, I froze in front of an entire class. Now I've spoken in front of hundreds of people like it's nothing. But it took me being courageous to say, I'm going to continue to get on the stage, continue to do this and deliver this message, because I know I wasn't just given a gift to just share with friends.
So talk to a younger you. What advice would you give to a younger you?
The advice I would tell myself is a lot of what I was just saying, get clear on your goals and why you want them. Make the vision board sooner. Build your network and continue to push the envelope and continue to try new things. And it's okay. Something as simple as, hey, go get your passport a couple of years earlier. I would have told myself to take more risks.
Very good advice. So what keeps you going?
I had this phrase that my mom used to say. She would always say, at some point you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that is such a real thing. And it's not necessarily about the same context. For me, it's more so at some point you get tired of not living up to your potential. And because of social media, you're able to clearly see other people who are doing things that you want to do or that you aspire to do. And the only thing that really held you back was you not actually getting up and doing it. And I just feel like there's so many goals that I have that I want to accomplish. And even if I don't hit them all, I want to be able to look back and say that I tried and I gave it my all. And so I have a vision board for my life and the things that I want to do and where I want to go, and more importantly, the lives that I want to impact. So if I ever have a down day, I make sure to revisit my vision board. I do revisit my affirmations. I read certain quotes. Like I kind of have a process of things that I go through because you're human. You have days when you're tired and you don't want to do certain things. So I just remind myself of the bigger mission and vision at hand.
So speaking of reading, what book would you recommend to our audience and why?
My favorite book ever is called Never Eat Alone, and it's by Keith Ferrazzi. And it's a book on networking. And it's a big book, but it's a fun and easy read. And the guy who wrote it, Keith, he was a former chief marketing officer at Deloitte Consulting, but he came from a very blue collar background. And in the book, he talks about how he went from basically growing up on a farm to rubbing elbows with Hollywood celebrities. And it was more about how he decided to be strategic with how he networked, how he met people, how he followed up with people, and then how he began to build his brand as a connector. And it's filled with real strategies. And I appreciate books that have real strategies that you can take that example and go do it yourself. And I reread that book once a year because it's so good and it's filled with so many gems. And networking, no matter what, whether it's in person or virtual networking, is super, super important to your success.
And we were talking about that in terms of networking on a previous podcast. And one of the things that I noticed is that, and I'm gonna speak to myself because I don't want to categorize everyone. One of the things that I noticed me personally is that I did not understand the value of networking. I didn't know how to network. And so one of the things that was so important is networking is really about building relationships and making sure it's a win-win for all parties involved. And so as an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur, I've gone out to a lot of events. And, at first it was about how many business cards can I send out or can I give out? And so we know that nowadays, I guess business cards is really passé. But what is the key to networking that you would share with our audience that you've learned over the years?
The key to networking is always following up. It is very easy to meet people. You can go to a networking event in your city and meet a bunch of people. But if you don't follow up with them, all of those business cards in your hand doesn't matter. So one thing that I do is I leverage my Google Calendar or whatever electronic calendar or app you have. And I set reminders for myself to follow up with certain people. So if I meet someone at an event, I'll take you through a time lapse. I meet you at an event and I follow up with you and I say, hey, let's grab a coffee. And we grab a coffee and our conversation is great. And I feel the chemistry because networking is like dating. You can tell from the first meeting if you want to see that person again, right? So I'll tell myself if I feel like that's a connection worth maintaining, here's how often I want to follow up with that person, and I'll use my Google Calendar to do so. I've seen some people use spreadsheets to maintain their contacts. You can use apps to scan business cards, but set reminders to follow up with people via email to schedule those meetings, whether it's quarterly, twice a year, once a year, etc. But stay top of mind. And I've had people don't believe me when I say this, but like the bulk of my opportunities have come from people who I either haven't seen in years or I've never actually met in person. I met them via LinkedIn or Twitter, and we've had a couple of Google Hangout calls. We may text every 4 months, and these people have led to clients, speaking engagements, interviews, all kinds of great things just because we stayed in connection and built rapport.
And you mentioned on the top of that, answering that question, you mentioned about Google. What is a technology tool or platform that is a must-have for you in managing your business?
Google is everything. And I appreciate that through Google, you can buy your custom email address. So at your website.com, and it just looks like Google. But even more than the email tool and the calendar is Google Drive, because it's like your virtual desktop where you can make folders, you can make surveys, you can make spreadsheets, you can make presentations. And I really like using that. Even if I make something Microsoft Word, I'll upload it to Google, because then I can always access it. If my computer crashes today, I don't have to freak out because all of my files are on the cloud, they're on the drive. And it's interesting how, especially when you're traveling, how important that becomes, having easy access to your documents, your information. And it also makes it really easy for me I have a team of interns. It makes it easy for me to store what they're doing. They share a document with me. I'm able to quickly add it to a folder and go from there. So in terms of staying organized, I try not to use a lot of paper. I try to keep everything within Google Drive to keep it managed and organized with labels. And I also make folders in my email to store things. So the entire Google app suite of the calendar, the drive, the email, the Google meetings, there is a must have, and it's really affordable. I only pay about $4 a month for all of that.
That is really an excellent tip. I didn't know about so is it a cost to add when you talked about having your own website name at the end, instead of it being like, Pam at Google Mail, it'll be Pam at her website or whatever.
Yeah, and that's honestly what you're paying for, because all of those features I just listed are free with a Gmail account. So what you're paying for is to have the custom domain. So you can pay $4 a month, or like $100 or something up front, and have it. And so you get all of those same features, but it's now branded. And then you can continue to add mailboxes to your company with your domain, which is what I did for one of my interns. I bought a mailbox for them. And then you get like this admin profile where you can always manage. So let's say that intern goes away. You can not only change the password, but you can actually change that entire email handle. So if your email is hello@kyshira.com, I can change it to contact@kyshira.com. So it's really user friendly and easy to manipulate based on the changes that you have in your company. And for such a low cost, I mean, you can definitely buy email from other places, but I think for all of those features at a cost, it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, that's some excellent information, Kyshira. Thank you for that. So you launched your company in Philadelphia. So tell our audience, was that the best city for you to launch your company?
So I'm actually in Pittsburgh, and that happens all the time. People think we're Philly, and it's funny because Philly is actually far. Philly is about 7 hours away. We're closer to DC, which is convenient. DC is about 4 hours away. And I actually moved to Pittsburgh because my very first job out of college was here. And I worked at PNC Bank, which is headquartered in Pittsburgh. And I worked in human resources, which was a great first step for me. And Pittsburgh is an interesting city in terms of the startup community, because it's definitely growing here. We have a lot of incubators, a lot of accelerators, a lot of tech companies moving in. So it's been great to see entrepreneurship grow. But to be honest, the bulk of my business is done virtually. So it didn't really matter that I was here, because starting out, a lot of my clients were college friends who all took jobs post-grad they didn't like. And then they would refer me to their friends who did the same thing. And then people refer me to their friends. And so it just grew as a word of mouth thing. Pittsburgh has been great for my professional development, because I've had the chance to quickly grow, not only in my career, but from a volunteer perspective. So I served on professional boards like National Black MBA and the Urban League. And those gave me additional skills that I don't think I would have gotten elsewhere, that I could use in my business in terms of event planning, public speaking, managing people, managing money, and fundraising. And so now I have my own conference associated with my blog, and planning it is very simple because I've been planning events for 3 years now. So Pittsburgh was a great place to be because it's a smaller hub. And if you're good at what you do, you can quickly grow here.
So how do you, with all the things going on there in Pittsburgh, how do you balance or blend your personal life, family life, and your business?
So I definitely won't lie and say I have the best work-life balance, because I definitely think my personal life is taking a hit. But I'm okay with that right now in terms of the building and the grinding that I feel like needs to happen. But I'm also not someone that says work 24/7, no sleep. Like, I think that's false. So I definitely ensure that every week I sketch out time for myself, whether that's going to the spa or watching TV all day or grocery shopping, because I actually really like grocery shopping, but, make sure that I carve out time to do things that please me. And I'm actually an only child, so I'm very introverted and I don't need a lot of social scenes to feel enthused, but it's more about doing things that I genuinely enjoy and that don't force me to think about business. So when it comes to my businesses and my volunteerism, I'm a stickler for calendars. I don't answer calls that are unscheduled unless it's my mother. I put everything in a calendar. If I'm having drinks with a friend, I put it on my calendar and I carve that time out. So when it comes to my 7-day week, everything is planned, and I even block off that time for myself so that no one can interfere with that or no one can take ownership of that. But even something as simple as I'm just not answering my phone unless it's an emergency has saved me so much time.
Wow, that is really profound. That is really good. So you are managing to your calendar.
Yes.
So talk to the person in our audience. They want to start a business. They're fearful. What advice would you give them?
My advice would be get very clear on why you want to start the business, because that's going to help you to overcome those fears. And sometimes I think in today's society, people decide that they want to start a business or a blog because they're seeing it on the internet, other people doing it, so I should do it too, not realizing how hard it is. And I challenge you to look within and figure out what's motivating you and what's driving you, because I promise in those dark moments when it's really rough and it's really hard, and no matter how good you are, those moments are going to be there. If you don't really want it, you're going to quit. And quitting isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you've invested time and money, you don't want to just up and quit, right? So I challenge people to get very clear on the why, what motivates you, what's driving you. And when you do that, you kind of have that internal motivation pushing you forward. And then the next piece of advice I would give people is maximize your resources. A lot of times I see people ask questions in Facebook groups or on Facebook statuses that I feel like it will be quicker for you to type it in Google and get your answer and get a better answer than what people are probably giving you. And I think that no, and I don't want people to think that there's something wrong with asking questions, because it's not, but it's about asking the right questions. So I say that to say, maximize Google, maximize YouTube, maximize podcasts, maximize books. I know books can get expensive. Public libraries are still in existence. You can go get all the books you need for no cost, right? But I don't think people maximize resources enough, and they just want answers handed to them. And I think that in entrepreneurship, if you're that kind of person, you won't last very long. You have to get what they call scrappy in how you approach problem solving, meaning you're looking for different answers. You're looking for different ways to solve this. You're looking for different routes to take. And I think that if you develop that skill set sooner rather than later, it's going to save you in the long run.
So, Kyshira, tell us, was it a surprise to you that you became an entrepreneur, or was this something that you knew at a very young age that you were going to be an entrepreneur?
I feel like I should have known that I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't pay attention to it. When I was actually a child, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but that just didn't quite pan out. But I remember having these little hustles around the house. Like I would, try to figure out how to increase my allowance. So I lived with my great grandma and my mom, and my great grandma used to sell. So I would take her thread and cut it and put it in bags and sell it as floss to my family members, little things like that. They're just okay, you're entrepreneurial at heart, but I never thought about it. And then when I finished college, I graduated with an MBA. I just knew I was going to climb the corporate ladder, and my goal was to be a chief diversity officer. That was my passion, and I was going to work in recruitment and then training and then work my way up. And even when I started my first business, it was just meant to be a hustle because I was good at what I did. And my sorority sisters would say, people will take advantage of you if you keep doing this for free. So you need to make a business out of this. And I love this. So I decided to do it. But I never thought that it would be for the long haul. I didn't even start marketing until maybe after a year into it because I had so much traffic from just word of mouth. So it was one of those things where it was always just meant to be extra income, but it wasn't meant to be my passion. And now the tides have changed where I look forward to the day where these mentors are the only things that I have to work on.
So what do you do when you hit that bump in the road?
So I love revisiting what happened. I'm all about undoing the puzzle and looking for the lessons learned so that I don't make the same mistake twice. That is a very simple answer, but it's not simple in terms of execution. But I reflect, okay, what happened here? What was the issue? What was it with the timeline? Was it with the technology? Was it with the pitch? Like what was the issue? And I mean, I've definitely had a lot of bumps in the road, but having that mentality of looking to grow from this as opposed to staying in my sulky mood, like that just wasn't going to work. And I want people to know you're not a machine. You're going to feel those type of way when things don't work out. You can allow yourself to feel that. Be a human being, but just don't stay there too long. Don't let that paralyze you to the point where you can't function and get back up.
So if you had to do it all over again, Kyshira, would you stick to the same industry and the same business?
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
And why is that?
I love what I do. I don't have any regrets. Granted, it's still early for me. I can't say that I've been in business for, 10 years or so. It's still early for me, but I love what I do. I love the beauty industry so far. I love working with creatives and freelancers, especially when they're at the start of their journeys, because their energy and excitement it keeps me going. It helps me to stay focused too. And then seeing them meet their milestones, like that's just for me. But the kind of person that I am, I thrive more off of intrinsic value than extrinsic, which is basically the money piece. I thrive more on those internal feelings that I get from knowing that I help someone get to that next level, and I just wouldn't trade that for the world.
So talk to our audience and talk to someone in our audience that's your avatar and take them on the process of your business. You as the expert, Kyshira, what would they get from you? What is the value add someone coming to you? Take them on that experience.
So if you were coming to me for branding help, one of the things that I do tell people all the time is I don't have a cookie cutter approach. How I would coach you is different than how I would coach someone that's probably in the same industry, because I pay close attention to where you're starting and where you want to go. And then I look for gaps in your plan. And granted, there are certain branding strategies that apply and principles, things like that. But I'm more about you and where you are and where you're starting from and where you want to go and how much work you're willing to put in. And then from there, we craft our plan. I am an advocate also of pushing people outside of their comfort zones. If I feel like, hey, using video is going to be a game changer for you, I'm going to advocate for that because you're not paying me to keep you where you are. So that is something that all of my clients, no matter what, have all appreciated. They can tell that, yeah, you get pre-work and you get worksheets in between our calls and things to hold you accountable, but they can tell that things have been tweaked and customized for them. They can tell that when we have discussions, I'm not reading off a piece of paper. I don't have a 10 question list of things that I'm going to say to every person in the first call. I literally customize everything to that person. And so the process with me, it depends on what your outcome is. I have about 3 different primary service packages. One is about launching your brand. One is strictly about digital marketing. And then one is for bloggers. But within those packages, there is a certain timeline that we follow and objectives we want to hit. But how we hit them is based on you and what you're interested in. And then I recognize that not everyone may be ready for one-on-one work or even interested in that. So I do have online classes and online workbooks. And I even just published my own first book, like a physical book, which I'm super excited about, which is where I put a lot of my brand consulting work in that book to take you on that journey by yourself. And I think one of the primary differences between people who like books and workbooks as opposed to working with a person is it's the discipline piece. Are you disciplined enough to take yourself through the entire book and finish it and execute? Or do you need someone to hold you accountable? And a lot of times that's what people are hiring coaches and consultants for. It's like, yeah, you have expertise, but for the most part, you need someone to say, here's a strategy, now go actually do it.
So congratulations on your book. Tell us the name of your book and how can they get your book?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my book is called Bombshell of All Trades, and it's all about how to manage your brand and your business as a solopreneur because the bulk of our target audience are in their early phases and they're new, so they don't have a budget to bring on a team. So you still have to be functional. So the book is all about how to do that. It breaks it down into 10 chapters on the fundamentals of business, how to execute, how to do things. It talks about marketing, branding, finances, blogging, all of that stuff. And then the second half of the book is actually a planning section. So it's imagine a business plan, but with pink ink. I intentionally made the inside pink to reduce the intimidation factor of doing it because like in that section, you're doing competitive research, you're doing market analysis, you're forecasting sales, you're doing real business strategy, but you have just pink lines inside. So you can actually find it. It's released, depending on when this comes out, June 12th, 2017, but it's available for pre-order before that at thisishermovement.com/bombshell of all trades. And after June 12th, it will also be available on Amazon.
Congratulations on your success with your book. Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that information with our audience. So let's switch gears a minute, Kyshira, and let's talk about risk or failure. What is the worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
I'll actually share something with you that's fairly recent, and it was a low moment for me, and it had nothing to do with products or services. Like it wasn't I launched and nobody bought, because in my opinion that those weren't super low moments. But I had a moment when I was actually talking to a couple of women privately one-on-one, and they were very seasoned in the industry that I'm in. And what I'm used to from corporate America is, the informational interviews, people sharing their stories and roadblocks, and you kind of go from there. And I was looking for mentors in beauty. These women were seasoned and had all these great accomplishments, but they were more so focused on selling me business coaching services that they were just willing to just kind of say basically mean things or rude things that had no merit just to sell a service. And that was a low moment for me because, number one, I haven't had that happen before. Anyone that knows me personally knows that I'm really driven, I'm really ambitious, and I'm super coachable. And I don't think I've accomplished everything, but I've accomplished a good enough deal where no one could ever say I'm lazy. You know what I mean? So when I had this discussion, these women, the things that they were saying without going into detail was just really rude. And then the conversation ended with, but you'd be a great fit for my business coaching program that cost this ridiculous fee. And it was just like, okay, well, now these people, of course I respect these people. So I'm thinking, well, maybe, are they right? Like, am I not qualified? Am I not ready? And then it became, well, no, that's not the case. They were just using scare tactics to try to sell to me. So it was two people in particular. It wasn't like a group. It's two people. And then I just became sad because I'm just like, well, how many people have they done this to? How many people out there have been scared off from their dreams or have been scammed out of all of this money to still be in the same place? And as someone who has a women empowerment brand, especially for women of color, like that just hurt my heart to know. And I know it happens and it takes time to change that, but it was just a low moment for me because it's like, this is why I do what I do. Like I don't believe in scare tactics. I feel like if you have to rip someone down to sell, I question how good you even are at what it is you do. And it just reminded me of something a mentor from my first job said, which was, when you see people in power abuse that just shows you how not to act when you're in their position.
Yes, that was really valuable lesson that you're sharing with the audience. And I agree with you 100%. And for the audience and those that are that are entrepreneurs or solo entrepreneurs or whatever position you're in, that was really some good advice Kyshira gave. And it can be, if you're not certain or confident about who you are, it can be intimidating. And I had a similar situation. And especially if you're on the internet, and you had talked about earlier about asking questions and about researching your own information, which is very good. And you have to really settle down and not be so, this one guy said to me, not to be so eager or look like I'm just, kind of vulnerable is really what it is when you're trying to get information. And it's so much information on the information highway, which is the internet, that you have to be so cautious and so careful. And that's the whole thing about entrepreneurship. It is about its risk. You're going to take risk and you're going to fail. You're going to fail forward, and hopefully you fail forward and fail fast so you can just jump back up and just keep moving. But it was a gentleman that I was actually looking for a web developer, and I had reached out in some communities, and this gentleman, what he had said was, we were chatting and I was asking him a bunch of questions, and I had some very bad experience about web designers and individuals promising things and not coming through with what their services. And so this gentleman, I was asking him his fee structure. And so he gave me the fee structure, and I said to him, is it okay if I give you 50% down and I'll give you 50% when you finish the work? Again, I don't know him from a can of paint, and I am vetting his services. And he got highly offended, supposedly insulted. And he said, and so we're doing this via text or email or whatever. And so he said, you know what? And he had already said in one of our conversations that he had taken some kind of psychology course or whatever. And it just kind of went full circle. And he said, you know what? We don't need to do business. And so that was a strategy that he was using. And so I came back and said to him, you know what? I wasn't trying to, because he was trying to say that I was negotiating the price. And I said, no, I wasn't negotiating. I was just, protecting myself. And so we went back and forth, and he just said, well, give me a couple of days and let me think about it. Another psychology. So I thought about it, and I just said, you know what? I emailed him back and said, you are so right. It's not a win-win. It's not a fit for either party involved. Just forget that I even, we even approached each other. Right. And so what he did is, and then he sent me another email like on Monday and said, just forget about it. But I had already said, forget about it. And I thought about it, and I said, do you want to be involved in a relationship with that person? That is, because you're going to have questions. And so now I'm going to feel like I can never question him. And it's supposed I'm paying you for services. And so I say to the audience, if you get in a situation, and I can go on and on about other situations where I was looking for mentors, and this woman, her name was, I'll just call her Pamela. And I called her Pam. That wasn't her name. And she just went off and, no, don't you ever call me Pam. I'm Pamela. And I thought, you know what? You have to think about, do I want to continue in a relationship like that? And that was good that you decided, no, I'm not going to be a part of that. And you have to set those boundaries when someone comes at you, and don't feel like you can't say no and next option. So that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Kyshira, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question that you wish I would have asked you? And I would like you to ask the question and answer it.
Oh, that's tough. You did such a great job. We've covered so much. Okay, that's an easy one would be what would be essential branding advice I would give a new entrepreneur? And my answer to that would be the best way to approach a brand is to start from the value proposition. What is the value for your potential customer or client from your service? And one reason why I say that is because a lot of people try to differentiate themselves based on price alone. Being the cheapest in the market isn't always the best idea. People will pay for value if they know it's valuable. So if you start from your value proposition and you work backwards, it will make your branding process so much easier.
Excellent advice. And you hear it thrown out a lot about branding, and that has always been a topic for me to really understand that whole piece about branding and marketing. And, in terms of even with branding and social media. So we could go on and on with that. So thank you for that essential branding piece for the audience. We've come to the part of our podcast where it's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. And I'm going to ask you, Kyshira, some questions, and I want you to give very quick answers. And it's just to give the audience a different view of you. And if it's something you choose not to answer, feel free to pass. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes.
The last movie you saw?
Fast and the Furious.
You relaxed doing what?
Having a glass of wine.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Beyonce.
Your favorite dance song?
Formation. And 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
French fries.
And your favorite month?
August, where I was born.
Thank you so much. Kyshira, we are so honored on Black Entrepreneur Experience for you to spend time with us. We know that you're extremely busy, you're branding and you're building. And so we want to thank you. But before we close, what is the best way for our audience to connect with you, to purchase your products, and to learn more about your business?
Well, thank you again. I really enjoyed this conversation. The best way to find me is to visit thisishermovement.com because it has links to all of my ventures there. It has a link to my branding firm. It has a link to Life of a Bombshell Cosmetics, and it also has my social media handles there as well. So thisishermovement.com is where you can find all of that information. Is where my book is being sold. My branding classes are available, and all of my social media handles.
Thank you so much. That's a wrap. You have heard it on Black Entrepreneur Experience, and we want to thank Kyshira for spending her evening with us.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.